The forest grew darker after the river. The twisted branches closed above, letting only thin beams of pale light through the mist. Aric's boots sank in the mud, his heavy cloak clinging to his shoulders. His steel blue eyes flicked left and right, his dagger gripped tight in his hand. Then, a low growl. From the shadows, pairs of glowing yellow eyes appeared. 1, 2, 6. Wolves stepped from the fog, black fur bristling, fangs wet with drool. They circled him slowly, their paws silent against the wet ground. At the front stood the largest, scar down its muzzle, staring straight at him. Aric swallowed hard. His pale face glistened with sweat, his brown hair damp and messy. His dagger looked too small in his shaking hand, but his eyes burned with courage. The alpha wolf lunged. Aric rolled in the mud, the beast claws slashing his cloak, ripping it wide. Another wolf leapt. Aric slashed his dagger upward. The blade tore into its neck. Blood sprayed across his green tunic as the animal fell, twitching. The others snarled, circling closer. Aric backed against a tree, chest heaving, cloak in tatters. He looked both terrified and fierce, like a boy fighting to prove he was more than a boy. Another wolf leapt. He struck again, his dagger cutting across its shoulder. The fight was desperate. Wolves rushed from all sides, snapping jaws, claws slashing. Aric's arm bled from a cut. His boots slipped in the mud, but he did not fall. His steel blue eyes narrowed with fire. Then the scarred alpha charged, fangs bared wide. With a cry, Aric threw himself forward, stabbing upward with all his strength. His dagger pierced deep. The beast howled, then collapsed dead at his feet. The last two wolves hesitated. They snarled once, then slunk back into the mist. Aric dropped to his knees, mud splashing around him. His dagger shook in his bloodied hand. His face was pale, his hair plastered to his forehead, but his eyes still burned. He had survived the wolves, but the forest had only just begun its trials. The forest grew heavier with every step. The mist clung thick to Aric's torn cloak, making it heavy on his shoulders. His pale face was streaked with sweat and blood from the wolf fight, his steel blue eyes alert but tired. His brown hair hung damp across his forehead, sticking to his skin. The silence was deep. No birds, no insects. Only the sound of his boots squelching in the mud. It was a silence that felt alive, as though something unseen was watching him. Then his boot struck stone. Aric stopped. The moss beneath his feet gave way to cracked gray slabs of ancient stone, lined with faint carvings, snakes, crowns, swords twisted together. Roots crawled across them, but the markings still glowed faintly blue in the fog. He remembered his father's words. The founder's path is marked, but only the worthy survive its test. His heart beat faster. The trees opened suddenly into a wide clearing. Towering stone pillars jutted from the earth like the teeth of a giant. Each was wrapped in vines, glowing symbols carved deep into their surfaces. In the center lay a raised stone circle, broken and cracked, as though many had fought here and failed. Aric swallowed and stepped forward. Click. The sound echoed like thunder. His boot had pressed a hidden tile. The ground rumbled. Aric froze, his steel blue eyes widening. Then the silence broke. From the shadows above, sharp wooden spears shot downward. Aric threw himself to the side, rolling across the cracked stone. Spears slammed into the ground where he had stood, splintering rock and sending shards flying. One scraped his cheek, leaving a thin line of blood. The forest had awakened. The pillars shifted, stone grinding against stone. Spears thrust from their sides, snapping forward like jaws. Aric dodged left, then right, his green tunic tearing further as wood slashed past him. His brown cloak snagged on a spike, ripping free as he tore himself loose. The air whistled. Arrows burst from hidden gaps in the pillars, raining down. Aric dropped to the mossy floor, rolling as shafts slammed into the ground around him. One sliced through his sleeve, another grazed his ear. His breath came sharp, fast, but his eyes never left the faint blue glow beyond the circle. That was the path forward. He sprinted, dagger in hand, cloak streaming in tatters. Spears smashed into the ground inches from his heels. Arrows rained around him, some shattering against stone, others sinking into wood. His body moved with desperate grace, guided by instinct more than thought. Then the earth shook. Chains burst from the ground, glowing blue like fire. They writhed like serpents, striking at him with deadly force. Aric ducked one, slid beneath another, his boots scraping stone. A third whipped toward him. With a cry, he swung his dagger, sparks flying as steel struck metal. The chain recoiled. His arm burned with the effort, blood seeping through his bandage. Finally, with every ounce of strength, Aric leapt through the last gap. He rolled across the mossy ground, tumbling free of the circle of death. Behind him, the traps fell silent, the pillars still once more, as if they had swallowed their fury back into the earth. Aric lay on his back, chest heaving, pale face streaked with mud and sweat. His steel blue eyes stared up at the gray sky breaking through the misty canopy. His green tunic was ripped, his cloak nearly destroyed, his body shaking from exhaustion, but his eyes still burned. He had passed the Founder's first test, and he knew it was only the beginning. The heavy traps of the pillars lay far behind him, but the silence did not lift. Instead, the mist thickened, curling around the trees like living smoke. The trunks here were taller, darker, their bark cracked like ancient scars. Strange markings were carved into them, glowing faintly silver in the gloom. Aric's boots sank into soft moss, each step muffled, as though the forest itself wished to silence him. His pale face was streaked with mud, sweat, and dried blood. His brown hair hung damp against his forehead. His torn green tunic clung to his body, his cloak shredded and dragging, his satchel heavy at his side. His steel blue eyes, though tired, burned with determination. Then the voices began. At first they were soft, like whispers in the wind. Aric stopped, dagger raised, eyes scanning the mist. Nothing moved. Yet the voices grew clearer. They did not belong to birds nor men. They were inside the mist. One voice sounded like his mother. "Aric, come back. Do not go further." He spun around, breath sharp. Nothing but gray fog. Another voice came, deeper, his father's. "You are not worthy. The throne will not be yours." His grip on the dagger tightened. His chest pounded. Then dozens of voices filled the air, mocking, tempting, calling his name from every direction. Too young. Too weak. Turn back. Die here, like the others. Aric staggered forward, covering his ears, but the voices were not outside. They were inside his head. His steel blue eyes flickered with panic, but he clenched his jaw. "No," he whispered, voice breaking. "I will not stop." The mist shifted. Out of it, shadows formed, figures of men in armor, faceless and dark. They carried swords of smoke and surrounded him, moving without sound. Aric raised his dagger, heart racing. His body trembled, not from wounds, but from fear. The figures closed in, their hollow eyes glowing faint white. He slashed. The shadows froze. The voices fell silent. The mist thinned, retreating slowly like smoke carried by the wind. The glowing marks on the trees dimmed. Aric staggered, falling to his knees again, breath ragged. His face was pale, his hair wet with sweat. His clothes hung in tatters, his chest heaving. But his steel blue eyes shone with something new, courage that fear could not swallow. He had survived the forest of voices. Aric pushed through the last line of trees and stopped, his breath catching. Before him stretched a wide black river, its waters churning with a slow, oily current. Mist curled above its surface, hiding what moved beneath. The air smelled of rot and iron. The boy's pale face, streaked with dirt and sweat, tightened with unease. His steel blue eyes scanned the river, searching for a way across. His torn green tunic clung to his thin frame, the leather satchel heavy against his shoulder. His brown cloak, shredded from battles before, fluttered weakly in the damp air. His muddy boots sank slightly into the soft riverbank. The sound came first, a faint hiss, long and drawn out. Then another, and another. The water rippled. Serpents, huge scaled bodies broke the surface, writhing in coils longer than ships, their slick scales glinting green and black. Dozens of glowing yellow eyes opened in the mist, fixing on the boy. Fangs gleamed like polished ivory, dripping with venom that hissed when it hit the water. Aric gripped his dagger tighter. His chest heaved. He was only 15, yet here he stood before a nightmare that grown men would fear. His father's words rang in his ears. Return with the sword, or do not return at all. The river had no bridge, no boats, only the serpents. Aric stepped into the water, cold biting through his boots instantly. The serpents hissed louder, their massive heads rising higher. One lunged, jaws open wide. Aric dove aside, water exploding around him. He stumbled but kept his footing. His steel blue eyes narrowed. He could not fight them all. He had to move. Aric dashed forward, splashing into the river. His satchel clung to his side, his cloak dragging in the current. The serpents lunged again, jaws snapping inches from his face. He ducked, rolled, and slashed with his dagger, sparks flying as steel scraped against scales. One serpent reared, striking like lightning. Aric threw himself beneath its strike, cold water swallowing him whole. His lungs burned, his arms flailing, but he forced himself upward, gasping as he broke the surface. The far bank was close, but the serpents circled faster now, bodies coiling in the water, cutting him off. His muscles ached, his wounds throbbed, but his steel blue eyes locked on the shore. He shouted, a cry torn from his chest. He plunged forward, dodging another strike, the serpent's fangs grazing his shoulder. He screamed in pain but did not stop. His boots struck mud. He had reached the far side. He stumbled onto the bank, collapsing to his knees, gasping for air. The serpents hissed behind him but did not follow. They sank back into the black depths, their glowing eyes vanishing. Aric lay there, soaked, trembling, dagger still clutched tight in his bleeding hand. His pale face lifted slowly, his steel blue eyes shining through exhaustion. He had crossed the river of serpents,